All right, guys, what's up? Welcome to another, well, first of all, Akariss here, bringing another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Welcome back to a new, literally brand new book, as you can see on my left here. That is a brand new fancy layout that if you've logged into FEH, you probably have yourself. So with a brand new book comes lots to discuss. As you see below me, Twitch chat is here and watching alongside you guys on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, of course, we appreciate you as well. I'm going to try to go through a lot of things in today's video, pretty much everything, mostly everything. So we're going to cover, of course, the FEH channel. I'm going to go over some updates, of course, on the channel itself and the content. I'm going to go over refines, Otherworld bonds, and just the arena changes. There's a lot to go over here, so I'm going to try to go through as much as I can. To start off the video, I'd like to point out that I've actually started a brand new journey on Twitch. On the left here, you'll see this is an F2P Plus account. An F2P Plus account is basically I do not summon ever on this account. As you can see here, there is literally a summon a hero, and this will never get completed on this account, and this is intentional. So I'm going to have a lot of fun on this account, and I'll be setting such rules like never summoning, never taking heroes from quests. And honestly, with that, I'm just going to see how much potential, how fun it can be to just use like the Grail system, some GHB, some Tempest Trials, and how far it can go in Ether Raids. Season will end soon in Ether Raids and Arena and such, just for fun. And I think this is especially good timing because we are getting a second Astro Mythic. So new players right now get a free Astro Mythic, and they get a free like Regents. It's two Astro Mythics, and on Light Season you have your Peony, your Ash, and your Eris. This is really exciting for me, and I thought you guys might be interested in seeing this journey as well. It'll be on Twitch. So again, I stream 4 days a week, Monday to Thursday, so if you want to check that out, come there. But I might be uploading some content as well over here on YouTube regarding this account as well. If you don't know what my main F2P account is, that is a very competitive, I believe 99% of the arena crowns, 100% of golden thrones. So we are super hardcore on that account, basically top 1K every single week in all the competitive modes. But this one I intend to play a bit more casually and just for fun and see the potential of what you can do with very limited resources, but also avoiding the gacha and not feeling like FOMO every single time. So that is my account. Just wanted to give you guys a quick share on it, and potentially you can check it out. If you want to see more content regarding this, please let me know in the comments below. With that being said, the first thing we'll do in obviously today's video is to look at the FEH channel. So in the FEH channel, I'm just gonna skip over certain parts. I'm not gonna like go through the whole video because I'm sure you guys have watched it. We'll skip over the opening cinematic. I will say from like a initial impression that the music is a banger. So if you've listened to like the map theme, you've listened to the obviously the trailer music, it's really good. I really enjoy it. I can't really say where I rank it because recency bias will likely make me like favor it more than I might be after hearing it for like the 10,000th time, but I'd say it's pretty good. So yeah, the freebie being Seidr or Seidr. I'm not going to try to pronounce it correctly, but I've always said Seidr Shell with Regents, so I'm just going to say Seidr for the character. And Seidr Shell, or Seidr herself, is an interesting freebie. It doesn't really feel like as weird as Ash the Cow was. That one was that one took me back a little bit, but this one is okay. Of course, as you can see here, she is our freebie. She's the free Astro Mythic, and she's really cool. She comes with a very interesting mechanic where she shuts down opponents based on a res check. The res check is distance based, and as you can see in the screenshot here, her base res is really high, and she shuts them down on odd turns, kind of like a 7th unit on AR. So this will likely, well, it's going to be useful in a lot of game modes, and from a tactical point of view, I feel that this will be very powerful, but specifically on a lot of player phase strategies, and still pretty good on other type of strategies, but generally speaking, she should be good overall. And I'm going to likely go over this in a future video, but I want to try to keep things moving in this one. And I'm initially pretty impressed with the potential of Seidr herself. She does come with Still Water. She comes with Chill Attack Res, which is going to be pretty useful. So pretty supportive out of the bat, but the C skill is going to be very impactful for a lot of really cool strategies that I'm not going to cover in detail here, but generally speaking, I think this is one of the better. It's so weird to see these Astro Mythics just time and time again, all of them being super strong, super interesting, and the Anima Mythics just kind of not as interesting. They're not really competing with the strength of something like Elamine, Naga, Nalia Seidr, so they're all very strong Astro Mythics versus the not as strong Anima Mythics. So that's something. So we get our celebratory bonuses. Of course, this is just some resources, which is always welcome. And if you missed it, we have 7 to everything. See, look at that beautiful 7 orbs here. Thank you, IS, for delivering us with those 7 orbs for the 7th year. We really appreciate it as your loyal gamers and customers of this game. Thanks so much. Big pog. Moving on, though, as you see here, we have the new banner. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but one thing I will say is that the new rearmed is really disappointing. She does not come with any PRF skill. And I said the exact same thing about Ganglot. Ophelia is not hyped for me. Not hyped for me, chat. And I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. So I'm going to pull up my game again here, and I'll tell you somebody else that is right here looking at us right there in the barracks that is also a Red Tome infantry unit. And to be honest, at least he has a PRF weapon. Although it's not any good, but what I'm trying to make as a point here is that because Ophelia doesn't come with a PRF weapon, she's pretty much the same as Ganglot, a Red Tome infantry being sold to us with nothing special. You can literally inherit everything off of her kit to another Red Tome infantry, anyone, including Ray, and max invest them, and they're pretty much doing exactly the same thing. So I don't, my personal take on this is I don't like these rearmed heroes coming out and they don't have anything unique about them, because Ganglot is pretty much like a Brigand Boss or Gonzalez or Ninja Shamir or Ninja Hannah. Is these really not special units. They don't have something like Grima to make them stand out like a PRF A skill, or even Lift when he came with Open Future or Deadly Bounce. At least that's something to distinguish them from the other units, and when they use those rearm weapons, it's unique to them. So while Ophelia is really cool, and she does come as a huge fodder package, we've pretty much been summoning for fodder since 2017. So really, I'm kind of disappointed. I was hoping Ophelia could stand out a little bit more as potentially having like some PRF special or PRF assist or skill or something. Just it's really disappointing that it's just a premium unit being sold. You can definitely bank some fodder and get some value out of this fodder, but Special Spiral 4 is more interesting than Ophelia here, because Special Spiral 4 pierces DR, and for many tome users this is going to be really valuable because they don't have, most of them, there's some exceptions, but most of them have no real way to get around Deflect Magic. There's no Deadeye or Lethality alternative, so Spiral 4 gets around this. It's going to make all the tome users really value that, and that's what's more interesting. It's the fodder and not Ophelia herself. So if you're an Ophelia fan, I feel for you. I'm sorry, but my hype for Ophelia herself isn't there because it's just nothing to stand out. So is how we stand on that. Anyways, the banner itself. Here's what I do think you should consider when looking at a banner like this. So because there's a mythic here, the mythic is really valuable if you're planning to get into AR or you're a new player and you don't have high merges on at least 3 Astro Mythics. Okay, in this case, 3 Astro Mythics. So if you're somebody who's just like started out and you really want to get a head start, you may want to consider sparking Seidr here to give yourself a score advantage in AR offense. I've covered this in my new players guides, my Ether Raids guides on the channel. You can go check out the relevant playlists here. But generally speaking, if you want to give yourself a head start in something like Ether Raids, Seidr is going to be an amazing pickup for sparking, getting a +1, and potentially more in the future. If you pick up Fed Pass, then you can gradually spark her on every rerun Legendary Mythic banner that happens to come back every 2 or 3 months whenever she does end up coming back. It's a good head start. The alternative to this, of course, is the remix banners. If you're non-Fed Pass, then you may want to stick with like Naga, and Altina soon is going to be there, and I'm sure Plumeria will join shortly sometime next year. And if you're not Fed Pass, that would be the way to go, as opposed to Seidr here. Either way, if you're somebody with low merges on 3 mythics or just your Fed Pass and you want like a brand new shiny mythic, then this is the banner for you, as getting the rates of a mythic or legendary that isn't on a legendary banner is always something that is appealing. However, I warn you, if you are already pretty established in AR, there is probably not so much value for you here. I'm personally skipping this banner myself because I already have a +4 Regan, a +5 Plumeria, and a +10 Naga. So for me to really replace one of those would require me to summon quite a bit, and I don't want to do anything without the guarantees of the Gacha Spark. So pretty much a skip. The other units are like Ophelia, as I mentioned, not really standing out. Just being like a fodder package is and So yeah, that is that. We have some potatoes in our garden. And all right, guys, so regarding the Otherworld bond, this is where I will go on a take that I mentioned during my stream, which is I feel they're a great way to avoid the gacha. And the thing that's not as appealing with this is the exorbitant price of it. So right now it seems like it's going to retail at $55 for one copy of a specific hero. This is a great way truly to pick up the heroes that you may want, but it is limited to book 4 and below. And the exceptions is like the rules regarding this Otherworld bond is book 4 and below heroes. They come with max flowers and a skill set you want, assuming the player that you're going to get this hero from even shows up during your hunt in Binding Worlds. So you'll have to find somebody who has the hero, then you're going to have to request maybe a certain skill set, then you'll pick them up with max flowers. Pretty good for picking up limited heroes, a good way to avoid the gacha. And generally speaking, if you compare it to the orb prices, it's going to work out. Like $55 compared to $55 of just pure orbs is statistically better just to get a specific hero with a specific skill set. However, when you compare it to some of the other stuff, I'm not really sure it lines up that way. So Fed Pass, if you look at it this way, is $10 a month, I believe, and over the span of 12 months, that's about 12 legendary or mythic banners. You can get 12 sparked guaranteed characters. So with your Fed Pass and about, let's say, 200 orbs, you can get yourself a guaranteed limited hero, and even one more recent, up to book 7, for example. So comparing that, 120 gets you like 12 legendary mythic heroes versus $55 for one specific one, even though that one's geared out and it's a bit of an older one. I'm not really convinced that it's going to be extremely good value, but if you really, really, really wanted a specific hero with a skill set, it might still be better than just flat out spending, money on the orbs. Our good friends here on Reddit, a post by Regulus Plus, thank you Regulus, has a list here of some of those book for heroes that might be of interest to you. And as we can see here, something like Linja could be really good, or potentially heroes that might end up for refines very soon. With somebody like Win or Marth, honestly, getting a refine recently, it's one of the better ones if you ask me. So like he could be somebody you'd want, and it'd be otherwise pretty hard to get him, or there's just no way to get sparks on them because IS doesn't rerun these sparks. So some of this stuff like Linja or Winter Marth or potentially dual Alphons could be pretty good if you're looking to either really bank on those refines or just get specific heroes. To be honest, with legendaries and mythics, I'm not even sure it's as good because you can still spark a lot of these, or eventually they will end up on the spark through remixes. As we can see here, the list is, a lot of these are already on the remix banners. These ones will be upcoming and they'll still end up on the remix banners. You don't even need Fed Pass to pick up those as a guarantee. So because of that, it actually makes a lot of the seasonals rarer. So like Linja is probably pretty good if you missed your opportunity or you want to merge or just a specific kit. That is definitely a solid option. A lot of other stuff, if they're just your favorite, then you don't really need my opinion on that. You can honestly just pick up a lot of these and you'll likely just get a lot of value out of it regardless of what I say. But for the steep price, I'm not convinced yet that it's valuable, and I will revisit some of the better options on using this Otherworld Forma Soul, as we'll call it, later once maybe it becomes more available. So maybe we have some events, we have like a Summoner Duels or anniversary event where they give us one for free, then that is going to be my opportunity to give you guys some more info, some more specifics as to where you could potentially get a lot of value out of that soul. Okay, and finally, I believe in the Fed channel, we also have the introduction of arena tickets, first summon arena tickets. Now this is an amazing update if you ask me. It just means that over the span of a year, this is literally every single week, we will get a lot more 5 stars, a lot of 4-star specials, and that 4-star special pool will also increase, I believe, in 80 days. If we look at the banner here, it actually shows that the banner is ending in 84 days. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure that's just the pool of 4-star specials going to increase, and then they'll just give us a different ticket or whatever with that expanded pool. As it stands, this is just free 5 stars for playing the game, and a lot of them are pretty good. Some of them are pretty good. No, not a lot of them. Some of them are pretty good. There's a lot of bad ones, and there's some that you could potentially work with high investment. And over here on Reddit, we have a post by Simo Scientist and his 4Canagus there. Thank you so much for this one. So he's kind of listed out all the colors, and to be honest, I'm personally, like, I think if you're gonna evaluate these arena tickets, you really should consider your own barracks and the fodder you might be missing or you might be desiring. In the case of you just having like so much fodder and you don't really need anything in specific, you don't need either the characters, the merges, you don't really need fodder in particular, then you just might want to go for the highest value type fodder, which actually is red. But there's a lot of garbage here too, as you can see, 61% to get like nothing of the what he considers to be decent fodder, and I'd agree with this list for the most part here. We have stuff like Life and Death 4, Fury 4 is literally exclusive to red, as we can see here. FDR is here. We have just Shield Pulse is nowhere to be found in the other ones as well. Ruptured Sky, notably very good here. So there's just a lot of good stuff that we can find in red, and because of that, this is like, okay, if you don't really know, like if you already feel your barracks has, you know, everything you really need to build units, then red is pretty good to just add upon that fodder. But it's not the safest bet. You can just get a lot of really bad stuff like Luke, like Katarina, maybe OG Celica has no value for you, Carol probably has no value for you, maybe Sanaki has no value for you. And as you can see, there's just a lot of reds that are just not that great to pick up. And in that case, you might want to just look at the other colors where there's just characters you may not mind picking up, or potentially there's some fodder you can make use of. So in my case, I'm personally going for colorless because there's a lot of things in colorless that I could use either for fodder or the unit itself. So for example, I've never picked up a Hinoka despite my account being like 5 years old. So I wouldn't mind seeing something like Hinoka. I wouldn't mind seeing a Loki. Always good to get more HP out of Loki, or potentially a Sea Duel, for example. In colorless, I wouldn't mind even picking up Lian. I really like merging and using Lian whenever I get the opportunity. There's a couple of healers like Elise or Jenny, and they at least come with like Wrathful. Mist is probably pretty meh. Innis is pretty meh, and like Jafar is pretty meh. But like that's about the extent of all these colorless here, and I'd pretty much be happy with a lot of the other ones. And I think if you're happy with something like Ryoma or Lin, OG Lin, or Leo or something, and like there's a lot of these units that are just like, okay, whatever, they have no fodder, but I like the unit, then definitely consider that as your choice. This is honestly how I would recommend doing it. Don't try to make like your super efficient move. Just honestly pick whatever characters you like, fodder that you might be missing in your barracks, and where you're probably going to use them. So for me, this ends up being colorless. That is how I ended up coming to my decision. Not really based on the like fodder options or trying to min-max anything. Honestly, look at these, look at your barracks, and try to come to a conclusion on what you either like in these characters or what you're missing. And yeah, that's honestly how I would look at it. So yeah, that pretty much covers a lot of the FEH Channel stuff. I did go briefly over some of the characters, but I'm not going to go too much detail into them. We also have GHB on Hans, and Hans is pretty cool because he does have a lot of stacked weapons. Here's the meme, right? So Ganglot is worse than Hans. Hans is literally better because he has a PRF weapon, and I believe his weapon has like DR and a couple other things. I think I had like an auto double and whatnot. So it goes to show you just the uniqueness of every single character could be pretty good. He's also going to have that higher BSD since he's a more recent addition. Those are all things that are welcome, especially coming into book 7 and different books being relevant for Arena now and Chaos Season. So having those bonuses. Okay. And with that being said, it's time to look at the refines, the weapon refines. So we're going to start over here with good old Hubert. Now, Hubert is honestly, in my opinion, the least interesting of this batch. With Hubert, it's like there's not much going on here. First of all, his base effect is just an auto double and 4 to all stats, so nothing is really happening there. But if we look at the refine, you can do a bit more with him. The only thing I'm not really convinced with Hubert is, unfortunately, that his refine is supportive for stuff like guard and exposure. So he inflicts a bunch of debuffs, guard and exposure, but he's really going to be competing with a lot of units as a support slot here. So he's just getting a little bit of stats. He's doing some debuffs with guard and exposure, but there's other units that already kind of do this effect. So like Dual Thor, for example. And with guard, you even have someone like Loki, but Loki also has stall. So if you really wanted this kind of long-range support, you have other options. If you don't have Dual Thor, then yes, the Hubert as an exposure option could be good, but I don't think exposure is worth a support slot in something like AR personally. The condition to just use a rally or a movement is also, it's not like as easy to use as a start of turn. So I don't think exposure is necessarily worth a support slot. So I'm not convinced this is one of the better refines, unfortunately. And speaking of exposure, we have Kronya on the next set here. So Kronya is, she doesn't have much of a change here on her base effect. It looks like they changed the less than 100% to equals 99 or less, which is literally the same. So I don't really understand what's going on there. But in terms of her refine, I'm actually fairly happy there. So her refine is extra attack and speed, and to be honest, with advantage unit like Kronya, you almost always want this extra attack, especially that. The speed can be useful for getting around wind sweep checks, but the extra attack is very much welcome. She already had 5 attack in her weapon, and now she gets an additional 5. This is very good. And as somebody who used Kronya extensively, I can tell you that having extra attack is huge. Additionally, she now is able to do 5 damage to the target and a Savage Blows type effect. So splashes, it's pretty much Savage Blow 2, and then inflicts exposure. These are all things that really help Kronya be better at her job, because honestly, she needs all the help she can get. So having an additional 5 attack, being able to splash some damage without using Savage Blow is a big deal, and then applying exposure. Now, in the case of Kronya, I actually think this exposure is pretty useful, whereas with Hubert, it's very situational. In Kronya, she should pretty much always appreciate the extra damage that she can apply from exposure, and the Savage Blow will be synergistic with her weapon. However, she doesn't have enough going on here in this weapon for her to truly just be good out of the box. She really does want a lot more to work. So Special Spiral 4 is a good example of this. Special Spiral 4, which is coming out from Ophelia. If you wanted a good candidate for that, honestly, Kronya is good, because one of the big weaknesses Kronya has is DR. She's going to miss kills against a lot of stuff, but with Spiral 4, she was already using, I'd say one of her better builds was using Spiral 3 and then throwing off Glimmers, Moon Bubbles, or Ruptured Sky. Now with Spiral 4, she's still going to do that, but she gets more oomph out of it because it pierces DR, and that will make her far more consistent. Unfortunately, she's still going to be a little bit weak to stuff that are just really tanky. So Hardy Fighter, Special Spiral 4 is not going to go through that. And just units that are just going to be super bulky are just not going to really die to Kronya if the bulky unit has tons of stats, tons of health. Though with a close salvo build, with Spiral 4, with Fatal Smoke, and now you can really free up your Seal and C-Slot by not using Savage Blow and using like attack speed solo, she is going to be in a better state than she was pre-refine. So I'm honestly fairly happy with this. I think in a very invested build, Kronya can do a lot better than she was before, and I will be using her on my main account and on my other GHB F2P account. So moving on is Na. Now, Na is, well, for like base effect for all stats, plus she denies follow-ups. The more interesting part is actually her refine effect. So she now has a start of turn defense res 6 plus buff. That's pretty good. That's basically like Element buffing defense and res 6. But the really good part here is the grant special cooldown charge +1 per attack. So this is like a special accelerator blade effect for the team within 2 spaces. This is very good, I'd say, for something like Light Season or just Gale Force strategies or just tanking strategies where maybe the unit doesn't have natural ways of special acceleration. So a lot of Tome users can really benefit from like Lancina or something. Not could be a decent support with something like that if you wanted to tank with a Tome user. Or again, like I said, Gale Force strategies, you can actually not have to rely on blades, blade weapons, heavy blades, flashing blades, or something like World Breaker. In the case of Thor, yes, in Astro Season, you do have World Breaker there, but Na is really cool because you can really apply this to the whole team. So I really do like that as a support option. If you have Na, then I would highly consider her as an option for just not having to deal with acceleration, not having to deal with a lot of the checks, and getting that more consistently. So I really do like this effect. I think it's pretty good. In terms of combat potential, it's kind of whatever. She technically gets stronger by having allies nearby, sure, but that's not really the really appealing part of this refine, which is just being able to buff your allies with the special acceleration part. That one is the really good thing. All right, moving on to, oh, yeah, this one. Okay, so bonus and bonus. Did you know that bonus is all effects that last for one turn or that turn only, includes bonuses granted by a skill like Rally or Hone, are positive status effects? But did you also know that all effects that last for one turn or that turn only include bonuses granted? Okay. All right, I'm done. Okay. Dual Ephraim. Dual Ephraim is actually pretty good here with this refine, I'd say. It's one of the more interesting ones. So it's not slaying, and I do think that is a bit of a setback. I do think he would have appreciated slaying, and it really goes to show you how important something like slaying is. Effective against armored and cavalry is appreciated, especially the armored portion. Unit cannot be slowed by terrain. So this is the effect where he can pretty much walk over trees, and the trees are not going to impede his movement. And that's the big one. Definitely a big one. Now, a very common AR map is Lost Castle. Lost Castle has a very specific tree setting that I think is overlooked, which is right under the defense tiles. There is a one tree there, and a lot of the calves would have to go around this tree, or in the case of infantry, they'd have to like be smited onto it. But the impassable terrain for someone like Ephraim is actually pretty good because it gives them a different way to engage into teams that use Lost Castle and use that tree actually to their advantage. So I do think this is decent. Just having it there as an extra benefit is pretty good. He gets the additional 4 to all stats, that's whatever, and he also has his auto double. So nothing there has really changed, but having that additional avoidance of trees, in my opinion, is pretty good. He does also come with Canto Rem now, so that's appreciated, I guess. And on even number turns, he gets 1 extra movement. This is also nice, because you can potentially use Odd Tempest to give him through movement all the time and effectively turn him into a cav. However, I do think the C slot will also be competing with some other good stuff like Times Pulse and potentially Pulse Smoke as well. So, or even Attack Smoke 4 or Speed Smoke 4. I don't like the whole odd even turn completely, and using odd is at least interesting because you can make him like a permanent cav that way. But at the end of the day, I do think that C slot being just for movement, using it that way may not be totally ideal. So he gets an auto double as well, and he denies an auto double. But again, he's just going to be a more consistent Gale Force or just an initiator in general to get in and get out. And honestly, Dual Ephraim is pretty good at that. All right, finally, Dual Marth. Now, Dual Marth is probably the subtle winner of this batch. This whole batch isn't as interesting, I'd say, as Yoon, who just completely destroyed Dark Season. But Dual Marth here is very impressive for a refine. So he's got a couple of things going for him. He's got special acceleration off the base. He's got 4 stats, of course. But in the refine is where all the awesomeness comes in. So the condition's really easy, and it's within 3 spaces, 4 stats, and then an faux initiation clause where if Marth has more speed, which is pretty easy because he's one of the speediest, definitely one of the speediest armors in the game, he's going to attack first. He has a speed preempt type build right here, and he gets to make a follow-up before the foe can counterattack. What that effectively means is he's going to just brave hit back before enemies even hit him, and I think that's really good. So if you're going to use him, let's say for far save, you can even run something like Savvy Fighter. He's going to effectively have his own advantage, and it's going to be really hard to engage into him with a lot of the squishier units. Like something like, let's say, Yuri with Lethality will likely not survive against Marth if they try to engage on him. Or like a Ninja Korin. They're all going to try to like engage on him and die. And I think that makes him a very annoying far save to deal with if you play into him for Ether Raids. So yeah, guys, that pretty much concludes a lot of these refines, a lot of Book 7 use. I wanted to go into more detail regarding just where I stand about the new mythic like Seidr, where she stands in Astro Season, but I want to play with the unit first, see how people play using her as well before I give my opinion on that. You guys can look forward to some more content coming soon. But that will cover today's video on the FEH channel and my thoughts on all that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoy the content, then feel free to give a thumbs up. It always helps give the reach. Other than that, thank you to my supporters here on Twitch, you guys on YouTube for watching. Let me know what you guys are most excited about in the comments below. Love you all. See you in the next one. Peace.